How are you? I hope the new year is treating you well so far. Oh, it's been a while since I've been out to the shop. And it's been a longer while since I created content. So I figured I'd do the thing like everybody else is doing and give you the old shop tour. And I'm kind of in mid-projects, multiple. I've been kind of burnt out on making and publishing videos. So it's a little bit of a mess. So we've just come in the door. So beside the second door, I've got some paraphernalia I'm collecting up there. Actually, I haven't been keeping up on my calendar changing. We'll get to that last. So I've got my planer sitting here, my Makita, and below it on its stand is my air compressor. And in this little cubby hole, just a minute, let me get some more light here. There we go. So I got this little cubby hole, and I keep the big shop vacuum in there, and I got my air hose and extension cord and the leaf blowers in there, some construction lumber taking up room for what reason I don't know. It's not supposed to be in there at all, but I got the step ladder, a piece of drywall, another extension cord. This is going to be, might not stay exactly there, but that is for when I get the proper power feed put into the shop. So this little cubby will be basically, hopefully, just the vacuum and the power dust collection area. And I've got a few things there, pipes for pipe clamps and rods for the chimney cleaner, and wrecking bars down there. Just kind of a catch-all spot right now. Above the door is my main lumber storage for my long pieces. And I've also got some pieces of styrofoam there that I use here and there. So my main feed for my shop is run off this extension cord. And as you can see, if we go back in here, I'm feeding my whole shop off that one great big extension cord up here on a 20 amp circuit. So I can only run one thing at a time. Let me back up a bit, get everything in the picture. Clamp racks. Still annoying me, my clamp storage. Mainly because they're not all uniform. Let me get my glasses on here so I can see the screen a little bit better. But yeah, they're there. I don't know how permanent that's going to be, but mostly pipe clamps, but I've got some other oddball stuff there, and some F clamps, and quick release clamps. Oh, there, I got my glasses on, I can see now. But short ones here, the long ones in the back, and little spring clamps and little C-clamps underneath this cabinet. And then I got my drill press that sits there on a cabinet that really should be on wheels, but that's mostly chemical and paint storage. Right now it's mostly just oils. All the paint is indoors because it's January in Canada, and anything that's prone to freezing I don't put there. Beside that, I've got my 4-inch Rockwell jointer. Something I think I'm going to get rid of, because at 4 inches in width, I can pretty much as easily do it with a hand plane. And a broom, and buckets for cutoffs, for what we'll get to in a minute. the cabinet is routing and sanding. So I've got my 2 Bosch routers in there. Get the light again. I've got my 2 Bosch routers in there and a little rack that I've made to hold my router bits, and 6-inch discs and 5-inch discs for the random orbital sanders, and sandpaper that has been used recently, and that green thing, and I did a video on this before, and this green thing is just a file folder, and if I open it up, it is all of my sandpapers sorted by grit. Hard to do this with one hand. So I've got 80 to 2,000 grit in there, all separated. Can I get that flipped up? Come on. So yeah, you can see the little tabs on there. There we go. All the tabs for all the different grits. So that's pretty handy. And part sheets and that I just kind of leave out there. I've got some Scotch-Brite pads in there. My favorite block of wood for sanding, etc. Up top I got belts for the belt sander and an adapter for the vacuum, and my edge guide for the router and router parts and bits and pieces, and a roll of sandpaper, another little clamp that I very rarely use, if ever. On the door I've got hung extra collet, the height adjustment key for the router, and the router wrenches. So that's basically routing and sanding cabinet. On top of that, the original blow molded case for the Makita sander that's empty and not doing nothing. Not doing anything. Okay, next to that is my baby. A Bosch 12-inch glide miter saw, the American version. Got a couple of videos out on that, making the zero clearance insert, trying to improve the dust plate. I've got a better Dymar blade on there. The stock blade is over here. The Dymar blade makes a nicer cut, and it's better on dust collection, which the Bosch isn't all that great on. But yeah, the glide miter, it's a sweetie. So if we go back up, I got boxes of plastic jars and glass jars and plastic containers and all the paperwork for my tools and cardboard boxes and ratchet straps, spare bulbs for the lights, a blow molded case for the router, which again is just taking up space. I don't know what to do with it. I don't really want it. And a big red tray for oddball stuff. And below that I have some cut-offs. And I'm not exactly sure what's all up there, but a lot of softwood, but there are some pieces of hardwood up there too. Below that on the bench, I have got hand cleaner, earplugs, my Bosch drills and drivers, a jug of water that's just kind of sitting there for cleaning stuff up, a pencil and a square right beside the Bosch glide miter where it's handy, thick layers of dust, extra batteries, glasses, just stuff that I've thrown up there, my spade bits, a cabinet full of small parts, screws and stuff. That's for the camera. That's for the toilet. So yeah, I've got self-tapping screws and hex head screws and concrete screws and washers and metric screws and all kinds of bolts and hangers and all kinds of screws. On top of that, a little jar of my pens, safety glasses, a Sharpie that goes in there, an oil can for honing oil, a couple of tape measures, another cabinet full of machine screws and washers and sheet metal screws and stuff like that. Oh, the dirty ashtray, we don't want that in the video. Pencil sharpener, a Dremel bit for sharpening the chainsaw, just oddball stuff. Hand sanitizer and a brush. I use that for cleaning the residue off of my saw blades. Works really well. I've got a video on that somewhere. And beside that is all my drilling equipment. I've got Forstner bits, and I've got a titanium bit set, and I've got driver bits, and I've got more driver bits, my honing guide, more Forstner bits, Bosch, all my small levels, a couple of plastic ones, a couple of wooden German made Hopf ones. And those are kind of neat. Regular drill bits, drill bit collars, spare drill bits, what do you call those things? Those metal uni bits or whatever, the tapered ones. Let me get it out of there. Those deals, step bits for doing sheet metal. And put them back. Oh, of course, you know, for the summertime, can of off. And that all sits on this big, huge cabinet. And this big cabinet I got from a friend of mine. Love it. Staples and tacks, smaller finishing nails, and nails for the air gun, bigger nails, fence staples, number 4 and number 6 screws, and overflow from them. Whenever I grab a handful and have some left over, they go in here, so I use those up first. 8 to 12 screws, and same deal. If I grab 4 or 6 of them out of the main bucket and I have a couple left over, they get thrown in there for next time. Stuff that should be put away from working on a buddy's lawn snowblower. Nuts, bolts, washers, bolts and pins and tension screws and eye hooks, tags, wedges, miscellaneous stuff. All kinds of garbage in there. Wedges for putting handles on axes and hammers, and some sort of little motor, a little piece of pipe, a fuel filter, just more or less junk. Cabinet pulls and hardware. Are we getting light in here? There we go. All kinds of miscellaneous cabinet pulls. All kinds of hinges, including Euro hinges, and I hate these things. What do we got here? Spacers, grub screws, all kinds of little bits and pieces there. Move things out of the way. Glues and epoxies, hose clamps, grinding wheel, little pieces of chain and clamps, brackets, everything that has to do with hooks, all kinds of hooks, felt pads for feet and rubber pads for feet and super magnets, anything to do with wall anchors, pegs and dowels and more dowels. Underneath that, I've yet to put drawers in here. So that's an even eventually thing, but I've got my caulking guns in there and some of the caulk just shoved in there for now. In here I've got, 2020 calendar that I've got to put up. Honing compound. Alligator wrenches that I have no clue what I'm going to do with, but they're kind of cool. I've got a whole bunch of them picked up at a yard sale. Haven't decided what I wanted to do with them. Another whisk. Some oddball nails. Next one over is my sharpening stones. What's that? Well, that's for the water for the sharpening stones. An oil stone that somebody gave me that it's an oldie. A rag, piece of rubber, my original strop, and then below that is the table saw. I think I'll put you on the tripod here. So my table saw is a 1986 Craftsman. Slides under there quite nicely. I've built it onto a cart, which is both the best and the worst thing I've ever done. It's a little bit too large. It's got an outfeed that folds. It slides under there right away. Out of the way. My homemade fence system. Are you still in the picture? Yes. My homemade fence system, which works really well. And as you can see, I've got the grub screws on there from that drawer to adjust it laterally and horizontally. 86 direct drive. It's got a slight warp in the top. So it's kind of cupped. I put both fences on this side and a larger, or fences, not fences, extensions on this side and a larger one on this side. And I've been thinking about putting a router table in here, but this needs so much work that I think I have to replace my table saw. It was my dad's. Like I said, it's 1986. It's seen its better days. Can't afford to do that, and I don't have the power in the shop yet. Drawer in the bottom, and that's got my table saw blades, my potato stack, and inserts. And in this drawer I've got tools for the table saw, feather boards, push sticks that I don't use, stuff for my splitter, screwdriver, wrenches to change the blade, my miter gauge, my box joint jig, and my tenoning jig. And over on this side I got the prop rods for the outfeed table, a jig for making miters. So everything with the table saw kind of stays with the table saw. My favorite kind of push stick right there is that one. And that's just made out of plywood. Just a 30-60 triangle with a notch on the bottom and a handle in it. Very easy to make. It's my favorite. So yeah, the table saw needs replacing. I need a router table built into it. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Just live with it for now. Over on this side is some bucket of car wash stuff and leftover schwas from stuff. That's actually my jig for when I drilled the concrete skirting, and it's got to go. My cutting jig for my skill saw for making a straight line. I have got an outfeed roller right there. And then we get into this corner. And I've got a drafting square right there, one of two. And parts for a project that I'm working on. Let's get that out of the way. So up top we've got hardware cloth and screening, a tile cutter, piece of ABS pipe, bits of tin. On the first shelf down I've got loom ties and my saw sharpening vise and propane and all my really big boxes of screws up there. Resisto tape, waterproofing tape, bones for making nuts for guitars, plywood carrier way over there, nails for the nail gun. And I don't use those that often, that's why they're way up there. The next shelf down, I'll get you closer. The next shelf down is more bulk storage of screws, finishing nails, small finishing nails, bigger finishing nails, all kinds of nails and screws, all bulk that all sit up there. More wood screws, more finishing nails. I've got a box in there, got tool holder hooks there for shovels and rakes, and string and wire. I've got belts for the snowblower and landscape ties and a spark plug for the snowblower and a plethora of junk. Another piece of Scotch-Brite, keep that separate because that's for greasy stuff. I've got a coffee warmer, and that plugs in. I use that for melting wax. I've got a stand for a dial indicator, and it's got two screws in the bottom, and that for riding in my table saw miter slot. A little helping hands thing for soldering. I've got a little coffee grinder for shellac. Things for wrapping up cords and hoses. So, just stuff that doesn't have a home otherwise. And then I've got another one in there. And it's got old inner tubes in there because I need rubber at times, and for a gas can, the original side pieces for my miter saw, and handy is a granite plate right there for sharpening. So glue sandpaper on there. Back up to the top. That's all electrical and plumbing stuff. Smaller pieces and big of hardware cloth, pieces of tin, old skill saw blades in case I need a piece of metal. Well, I'm caught on my coat. An old squirrel cage fan, and the cooler. And below that is what I used to use for my main workbench. And let me move this yet again. It's kind of a horizontal surface that collects things. And I've got some drawer slides there for the project I'm working on. My waxes, a light, an arm for working under there. Let me take you off there again. marking gauges, battery charger, bungee cords, the radio, chunks of wood, a tap and die set that I got recently acquired, an old one that I've got to do some work on, bring it back to life. That's kind of neat. Bevel gauges, ruler, squares, the squares I made, beater chisel, screwdriver, inspection light, pencil, marking knife, my burnisher for card scrapers, a ruler, just little pieces of wood for stirring stuff up, the first mallet that I ever made. Now it's getting pretty beat up, and that was just a branch that big and a branch that big, and glued together with a fox wedge tenon, paper towel. I guess we didn't really finish this part of the tour, did we? Let's go back a bit. This is the cabinet that I built, my tool cabinet. So I still have room in here. So if I go into the top drawer, it's all tap and die stuff. A drawer with just a few jigsaw blades, planer blades in there. Old tools that I don't know if I'll ever use. Don't know why they're there, but I got them. Some old carving chisels or lathe chisels or what have you. Tire irons. Another carving chisel. Another spoon bar for tires. Just cool old crap. In here I keep all my hammers and all my scrapers. So I've got a brick hammer and my dad's old wooden carpentry hammer that I never use, but I keep for posterity. A cross-beam hammer that I use for heavy beating. S-twing, ball peen, framing hammer, and a variety of scrapers, card scrapers, a tack hammer. Below that is all the stuff for my augers. So my hand augers, those are all overflow of the bits, those are all extras. I've got some spoon bits there and some, what do they call those? Perfect circle, no, not perfect circle. I can't remember, but those kinds of bits. Some rosebud countersinks and screws. Just concrete, just overflow. All my files, needle files, flat files, square files, 4-in-1, Surefoam files, triangular files, another Surefoam round one, more round, chainsaw file. So I got small round, triangle, flat-sided, square, and more flat. My diamond files. This one is all pliers. Anything that does this. So they're not all pliers, but they're all plier action. Vice grips, tin snips, big tin snips, more vice grips, scissors, side cutters, slip joint pliers, needle nose pliers, duckbill pliers, linesman pliers, robo grip pliers. Back there is C-clip pliers, and that reminds me. So my camera went to sleep on me. Right at the pliers drawer. So yeah, water pump pliers. Okay, setup stuff. My treasured Mitutoyo, use those in the bearing industry, Mitutoyo brand. Some indicators, a digital one, stoppers for the square, the large framing square, a little Starrett machinist square, a big tape measure, a surface gauge, an adjustable drafting square, which is probably in the wrong drawer, but it's from my drafting days. Screw checker, a thing with a bunch of circles in it, setup tools for router and table saw, playing cards, uses spacers. Next drawer down, marking stuff. My other T-square, SketchUp version 1, my good drafting squares, a math set, another circle thing, letter number, compasses, pencils, dental tools, markers, more pencils, an eraser, all that kind of schwaz. Old pencil case that, I don't know, I just thought it was cool. Screwdrivers. We've got Torx screwdrivers, we've got bits, we've got a small set, we've got Phillips head screwdrivers, we've got Robertson screwdrivers, straight bladed screwdrivers, little pry bars, snap-on for adjusting carburetors from my mechanics days, wrenches, we've got metric here, some big ones back there, standard size there, all kinds of hex and nut drivers, and of course everybody needs a set of knuckle busters or two. Sockets, impact sockets in both metric and standard, 3/8 ratchets, snap-on spark plug ratchet, again from my mechanics days. Craftsman socket set in metric, overflow of sockets. I've got an old torque wrench in there and a breaker bar and a speed bar in there. All kinds of schwaz. Brushes, flush cut saw, little pry tools, nail set, pullers, drywall saw, chisels, all kinds of other brushes, spark plug gap checker, nail sets, all kinds of knives, chalk for the chalk line, metal detector, tubing, and that goes with a water level, computer tool case kit, my multimeter, digital multimeter, and under here some plastic stretch wrap, the holder for my soldering iron, stretch wrap, that's all air tools, air hoses stuff, tapes, foil tape, tape for doing plumbing, double-sided tape, sheathing tape, masking tape, packing tape, wipes for glasses, nitrile gloves, help me breathe, duct tape, electrical tape, more duct tape, more plumbing tape, little pieces, this is for guitar work, especially little clamps and stuff like that, strops, And that's that. Below that I have this little plastic cabinet. And that is tools for doing siding, vinyl siding, a couple of little squares, pick coils for mosquitoes. Oh, big squeak. All kinds of Dremel stuff in here. And it's binding up because it's over full. Come on. Come on. Just hold it. I needed 2 hands. So yeah, all kinds of Dremel stuff in there. Into the Dremel motor and the rotor attachments. Oh, nice noise. In here, chargers and handles and leather belts and junk. Rags. Car wash rags. Extension cords and jumper cables. A fan. Tiles. Those are the same tiles that are in our kitchen. I've got some jack stands under there too for working on cars. Pieces for the project I'm working on. Future video. We did that, right? We did this table full of schwas. A bucket under there for attachments for the small vacuum. Painting stuff. Stuff being organized. The shop heater, which is in the way. Humidifier I'm working on. That's another project, and that'll never see YouTube. Start at the top, should I? Sure, why not? Lathe kits, packing material, plastic, the protector for the air conditioner for the outside. The big box is my framing nailer and a really bad Black & Decker beat to death reciprocating saw, a tripod, more router parts and grippy pads, hole saws, and oh, my new brad nailer, 18 gauge pin nailer, more grippy pad stuff. Mostly power tools, sanders, grinder, hand grinder. You can't see that in there, but there's an electric drill that I never use. A lumber cutting guide for making lumber out of logs. My sanding jig. In the back is all electrical component stuff. Wheel dresser for the grinder. Next shelf down, I've got a grinder and a rivet kit, and a rivet gun, and a stapler, a soldering iron, and another Dremel, and a jigsaw, and an oscillating multi-tool, my metal vise, and a grinder way back there, and a skill saw. And below that, covered in plastic, are the air conditioners. Below that is a tub of all kinds of detritus, floor jack, the swimming pool next year, junk, mostly garbage. I keep this styrofoam stuff. It makes really handy for making jigs and stuff like that. Leftover flooring from doing the bathroom, I think. Fire extinguisher. My 2 spirit levels, the red one has to be replaced. My framing square, a small poly square, and my saw, coping saw, a Ryoba that I don't get along with. Can't cut worth a damn with it. That's just me. Hacksaw with blades. Draw knife. Another square up there. Beater chisels. My good chisels. Some of them are missing because they're over on the bench over there. a couple of hammers, cheap square. Come down. This is brace and bits and egg beater drills, and the bits for the drills. And there's a video on those too. Oh my god, tongue tied here. Smoke shave, there we go. My sawtill, got the saw set there, my dovetail, my tenon. These are rip saws. This is a 1910 Diston that I did a video on. Crosscut saws. Paper. A spot for a pencil with no pencil in it because it's on the bench. The strop and piece of wax lives there. Tape because I'm working on stuff. Oh, here we got back to these again. Let me move them. Let me move them back here so they're out of the way. My saw benches and stool underneath the workbench. The project I'm working on. And this is the usual state of my bench when I'm working on something. As you can see, I've been doing some cross-cutting and my carcass saw and marking. Making tenons. Not complete yet. Marking knife, a brush, chisel, marking gauges. The vise. Down below I have got all of my bench planes. Let me get the light again. I got my bench planes and some shoulder planes and router plane and accessories for the bench, mallets and appliances, bench hooks. That's the workbench, and it's here because when I look outside, there's my river. This is where I stand and work, and this is my view. So that's the reasoning why the workbench is sitting right here. Gonna move back. There we go. Poor lighting again. So yeah. The box that my dad made that was underneath the table saw originally, I use it for catching shavings, dustpan and broom, and shavings on the floor. Project parts, what do we got here? That is cedar, and that's maple, and that's pine. I'm working in walnut right now, so it's all out. Plywood bits, and over here another box of all kinds of stuff. There's mostly walnut and maple in there, but all pieces. This corner is the bane of my existence. I got a shelf above it, and I've got, this is all maple. That's all walnut. I believe that's ash. Yes, that's ash. More maple. More big pieces of walnut. Some pine. And some cherry. And clamping cauls and wedges. I always keep these shims around. They always come in handy. And little bits that I don't throw out for one reason or another. At the very least, they become stir sticks and applicators for epoxy and that. So this corner is what I really want to clean up. I'm sure I can make better use out of that corner with some more organization. I just don't know how to organize it yet. Cleaning it out would help, but gosh, I'd hate to get rid of all that nice dry wood. But I'm thinking if I got rid of my planer and if I got rid of my jointer, I could get a combination machine that would sit nicely right in that corner. And maybe even a bandsaw would go in there. The other tool that I would like to have. Again, not in the cards until the electrical gets done. So I'm 12 feet by 20 feet here on the outside. And so just under 240 square feet. And it's a little bit tight. But it seems to be a fairly productive place. And that's my 2020 shop tour. I still got to do some work on the ceiling there. I got to put some pieces in there. I'm thinking about putting some pine pieces there. And I'm thinking of changing the LED lights to, or the fluorescence to LEDs. And then what I'd like to do is put a strip over here and a strip over here instead. I still haven't found them at a decent price though. LEDs are expensive here. When I get the electrical in, I want to get a nice light that comes down over top of the bench. A dedicated work light. So that seems to be it for now. That's the Watertone Workshop in its entirety. Again, thanks for dropping by. Don't forget to hit that, that button. You can hit that button too if you want to, but that button, they both help. Leave a comment if you'd like me to go into detail about anything else, or if you want to check out anything else. And look at that. I got cobwebs. Needs a good cleaning this spring. And the plans are to finish up the trim on this window and get it working. I got something special planned for that. Got some ideas brewing. So yeah, small shop, but it's functional and it's mine, and I enjoy the heck out of it. Sorry about the lack of content lately, but it's got that white stuff on the ground, and it's been cool, and I've been kind of lacking motivation lately, and it's maybe a bit of burnout. So my battery's about to die. So be good to each other, and everyone take care. Thanks.